Chin. I can't really see that, so I'll just look up to you. Good evening, and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Jim Butler with Videre Wealth Management, and my co-host tonight is Jim Lorenzo of a public relations firm bearing his name. Welcome, Jim.
Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you. Well, there's a lot to cover tonight, as usual. Before we get to our special guest, why don't we launch things with a little discussion about some of the projects that you're working on.
Sure.
And public relations, as we were talking before the show started, really sounded like some interesting and exciting out-of-the-box kind of stuff, at least for those of us in the boring finance world. So can you share maybe
Sure.
one of those projects?
Well, one of my I have two very current projects that will be kicking off into high gear in the next few days. I'm working for the 10th year in a row with the Wizard World Comic-Con, which comes to Philadelphia every year at this time. And I'm helping coordinate the interviews for all the celebrities that are coming to town, doing a lot of pre-event publicity and during the event publicity for the Comic-Con at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. So some of the things that I've been working on most recently are getting celebrities like Henry Winkler from Happy Days and Arrested Development, and he's on a show now called Barry on HBO, getting him on radio and TV in advance of the Comic-Con, which he's coming as a guest, and also getting some newspaper reporters lined up with interviews for blogs and websites and print editions still, and coordinating TV coverage. We're going to be doing a number of live shots from the convention floor for the local television stations Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Our busiest day is usually the Thursday and Friday, because that's when you have your captive audience with people who are working in the city or people coming into town.
Right.
So we try to hit all the media outlets on that Thursday and Friday so that Saturday and Sunday kind of speak for themselves.
Now, the one caveat is knowing that this taping is occurring before it's actually being released. So the timing might not work for this particular event.
Exactly.
But from a business standpoint, Jim, how much activity and number of people would an event like this bring to the city?
We're expecting well over 50,000, 60,000 people over the course of the 4 days.
It's amazing.
It's one of the convention center's biggest draws every year. The convention center is currently celebrating their 25th anniversary, and Wizard World's been coming to Philadelphia at the Pennsylvania Convention Center for 18 years now. So we're one of their longest lived and regular customers. So the convention center people are very happy with us coming there every year.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that I used to go to the event as a paid attendee. I would go, I would buy a ticket, I would come and walk around and see people.
Spend your money.
I would spend my money. And about 10 years ago, they came to me and said, do you know anything about, can you get us on any of the local TV stations? Can you get us on all the radio stations? So I've been very fortunate to turn an interest into a business that I can provide for Wizard World. The company is based in Los Angeles, but they have events all over the country every year, and Philadelphia is one of the premier events for them.
I was just going to ask you, so do they have similar events at other major
They'll have
cities?
them in other major cities. The next one that they have after Philadelphia is in Columbus, Ohio. They do one in Chicago every summer. That's after Chicago, Philadelphia is their #1 show.
Okay.
So Philadelphia has been the market leader for them for 18 years now.
Interesting.
And as far as number of people involved, there's a number of people that work in the company's Los Angeles office. There's a number of people that work out of New York. I'm the only person that works out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I just on that one event. So we have a number of people behind the scenes, but we'll bring in celebrities from movies and television and radio and performing arts, and we have and then that event the last couple of years, I've had that in conjunction the same weekend as another event that I work. But this year, they're broken up a little bit. So I have a chance to work the Penn Mutual Collegiate Rugby Championship again this year.
You were talking about that.
And I've worked that for the last 5 or 6 years now.
Everything rugby.
Everything rugby, college sports, some of the top college teams in the country. And we have a number of events that week leading up to the event. The tournament is in the Talent Energy Stadium in Chester.
Okay.
But all the teams and all the fans and the families, they usually stay here in Center City.
See, there's another perfect example of the amount of economic activity that
Exactly.
comes to a major city like Philadelphia.
And we'll have over 30,000 people over the 2 days of that event coming into the city and spending their money and buying hotel rooms. And so it's a really big deal for us. And this year, for both the events, I've been very fortunate to work with the Center City District and putting some of the banners that you see around town on the light poles.
Okay.
We're going to be doing banners for Wizard World. We're doing banners for the Penn Mutual Collegiate Rugby Championship. So the banners will be visible and more people will be aware of it. We also do a lot of advertising and marketing through SEPTA.
Okay.
So we'll have placards on the buses, on the kiosks, on the subways.
Amazing.
And then the other thing that we do, and I kind of spearhead this with both events, is billboards and paid advertising. So I help them find the outlets that we want to use in Philadelphia and expose it through advertising. And I come in on the PR side, telling people where the event is, who's going to be at the event,
Right.
Which celebrities they can interview, which coaches they can interview, which athletes they can interview in advance of the event, so that we can get some. I hesitate to use the word buzz, but we definitely want to build word of mouth in the marketplace.
Sure, you do. So were you either involved or knowledgeable about the that famous parade that took place in, what was that, early February, when something happened for the first time in Center City that led up to the
I was
art
not.
museum?
I was not involved with the planning of that, but I was an interested participant or observer.
Okay.
Fortunate to live in Center City and see what goes on and get out there to see take part. There's a lot of work that goes into things like that, and we saw
Can
that.
only
I saw
imagine.
that a couple weeks later with my alma mater winning the national championship in basketball again.
Villanova.
So there's a lot of planning that goes into any of those things, and you really want to get the city involved, but you also want to get the community involved. So spreading the word is very important. The situation with what the Eagles did, the word of mouth was easy to generate. Situations like other things, you really want to work very hard, and that's where I come in. I work very hard to build that word of mouth.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting stuff. It's pretty amazing. And, you wouldn't think that rugby, for those of us not in the rugby world, really have no idea how big a community that is.
And it's comparable, especially in my opinion, it's comparable to the community that exists for any particular sport. Our guest later, I know that he wrestled, college wrestling. I've worked with the Schuylkill Navy on some of the Philadelphia rowing events. And there's these definite communities that rise up and take part in it. So the
Right.
Wizard World Comic Con has their community of people who dress up in costume and people who go to this show every year. We met someone earlier today who's very excited to go.
Right.
The rugby world is the same way. People gear up for this. It's their stake post in the calendar year. This is my event. This is what I'm coming to see. I'm going to come to Philadelphia, and I'm going to spend my weekend in Philly seeing the sport that I love, or the movies that I love, or the characters that I love.
Well, that's actually a really good lead into our question. So if I can segue into that, Allie Mifflin of Philadelphia has written in, Jim, and her question is simply, what are some trends you're seeing in business
You can have
today?
your questions
Well, I'd
answered
like to
on Money Map.
go back with you on that as well, but some of the things that I'm seeing from my point of view are the move towards social media and mobile platforms, away from the desktop and the television set and the cable box. So the cord cutting that people are experiencing, canceling their cable subscriptions and just going with streaming services and things like that. That's also affecting how I tell stories.
Okay.
So I look at myself as a storyteller for my clients.
Right.
And I'm going to go out there and tell their story and get them exposed and get the word of mouth going. So when people are cutting the cord and they're not watching the cable TV, but they're watching it on the streaming, or they're watching it on their cell phone, or their other devices, people are adapting their storytelling to those new tools, those new platforms. So that's the trend that I'm working with right now with my clients, and trying to embrace different ways to tell a story and capture eyeballs and capture attention. I know that there are some changes in the financial services industry and the money markets. What are some of the trends that you're seeing as far as how people are reacting to the market, how people react to world events?
Well, let me just comment briefly on your observation with regards to social media and technology. I think we're living in an interesting time, because those folks that are much quicker to embrace that newer technology clearly are younger people.
Yes.
If we just simplify it and say people who are 40 or younger. Yeah, those of us that are over 40 are to some extent, but we're probably, at least I am, a little slower to catch on. So I'm latching on to what today would be considered older technology, Dell, Microsoft, IBM, although they're very major players in today's market. But then you have your Facebook, Google, and any number of other players with more current modern day technology. So it's almost like there's a contrast today with regards to how much is available. So one of the trends clearly, I think going forward, really, as far as the eye can see, Jim, is that technology will continue to expand. And for investors who have the ability to either find and research a company or two or three to invest in, that's fine, or simply go with a professionally managed fund or an index fund that captures that sector. And I think you're going to, as long as you have the proper long-term view and the ability to hang on during short-term fluctuations, technology and certainly the advancement of medicine and medical technology will just continue to explode.
What did you think of Warren Buffett's recent comment that if he could own one company, it would be Apple? Do you see that as indicative of where the trend is going as far as owning stocks and owning pieces of businesses?
Yeah, and particularly for somebody like that who is really more of the old world industrialist, let's say. He made his name in transportation companies, insurance businesses, and he still has major holdings in those companies. So, but you look at Apple, and Apple's been around a long time, particularly in comparison to a Facebook and Amazon and some of these other players, and Google as well.
Yeah.
So there's another example of somebody from the older generation capitalizing on new technology. But that's also hats off to Apple as well in terms of their ingenuity. So, well, thank you. That's
Thank you.
I think a very thorough answer. And if you would like to write in a question for our panel to address, we'd love to hear from you.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Tonight's special guest is Mark Reale of Next Home Signature Real Estate. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
You have, you're in charge of the Exton, Pennsylvania office, as I understand it?
I'm the broker owner of that office.
So just to fill us in as a starting point, why don't you tell us what you do out of your office and maybe just a little bit about your background?
Sure. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've done different things from new construction development to residential sales and commercial and investment sales. Out of my office, we're a smaller boutique office with 7 people, and we handle the Tri-County area.
Okay.
And are you primarily residential, or are you also doing commercial right now?
Yeah, I myself do commercial and development, and residential probably about 50-50 right now, and most of my agents do primarily about 80 or 90% of their business in residential.
So what are you finding in, when you say the tri-state area, of course, so another way to put that is Delaware Valley, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. How is activity, and how is it in the suburbs of Philadelphia?
Activity is extremely high in terms of sales. There is a shortage of inventory, so there are multiple offers happening right now, so it's a seller's market. If someone is looking to sell, this is a great spring market to do it. And the buyers sometimes are getting a little frustrated, because if there's 4 or 5 buyers all bidding on the same house, only one of them's getting the home, so
Right.
a few people aren't getting it.
4 or 5 buyers, right.
Right.
Right. Well, I also see, for those of us who live out in, say, Chester County, a lot of development. So that speaks to what you just said in terms of activity. There's a lot more sellers in the marketplace.
Yes, new construction has built up, and it's taken a few years for it to catch up with the market, because during the downturn, it takes 2 or 3 years to get these development projects up and running. So they're starting to come to fruition now, and with that, we've got a growing population in both the outskirt counties of Philadelphia, and with that, we need more housing.
What's the biggest area, what's the biggest community that's growing right now in your eyes?
I would say really the Chester, Montgomery county areas are growing fairly rapidly, and the new construction that's coming in, not just residential homes but also apartments.
Oh, okay.
Have been built, and the feel for walkable communities are coming outside the city. So to have that walkable community, you don't have to be in the city anymore.
When they say the walkable communities, that's like the multi-purpose, multi-use facilities where there's shops, and retail, and then there's restaurants, and there's apartments and condos in
Yes.
town?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and also the ability to get onto public transportation to get into the city. So again, a lot of people in the city don't own cars because they don't need one, and it's starting to trend a little bit out to the suburbs if they have the ability to get to the train station or even to the bus to the train station with a short walk.
So where are the people coming from if it's exploding out in Chester and Montgomery counties?
Right now, we're a lot of growth in Chester County comes from a lot of the corporate headquarters. A lot of people don't understand, and just in Chester County, there's 26 headquarters of Fortune 1000 companies.
So
26
that means
of them
people are coming in from out of town.
People are coming in from out of town, yes. And a lot of the companies have their headquarters here, but their manufacturing plants are not, where their facilities are across the country. But because of that, a lot of the top management people are coming in here to the city, and they're coming from all over the country, and so they bring different ideas of what they want in housing or how they want to live in terms of lifestyle. So a lot of the communities that are popping up have to have commuter-friendly or walkable communities, and that's what's starting to be designed and built now.
So is Pennsylvania and the tri-state area, Mark, more attractive, would you say, than, say, other major metropolitan areas? I think obviously of New York City, which is just up the street, and then D.C., down the street, and out in California, whereas in PA and Philadelphia, is it more attractive from a tax and cost of living standpoint for these companies to headquarter here?
Yeah, Pennsylvania is still very affordable. So in a recent study where the sale price is up 7% over the last 12 months across the nation, Pennsylvania is up about 5%, which is typical. right now. The State College area is considered a little overvalued, but the rest of Pennsylvania is normal or undervalued. So people in Pennsylvania can get a lot more house for their money than out on the West Coast or New York City. Again, I think people who have lived in our general Philadelphia area enjoy it, and I've had people through the years that have worked to move back to the Philadelphia area. It's convenient to New York, to the Poconos, to the beaches, and to DC or Baltimore. It's Philadelphia is a great place to live, and people, once they explore it and find out about it, they fall in love with it.
And look, our sports teams are even doing better.
Exactly. Do you look at real estate as a safe investment for somebody who's not owned a home before, or is just getting into it for the first time? Is it a safe investment that people should be getting more involved with at this point?
I do see it as a safe investment. I mean, the alternative is obviously you're going to pay rent. The advantages to owning a home, which are many, you get to deduct your interest in real estate taxes that you're paying, so you get a little break there. But also, it's yours. You get to do with it what you want. You can paint it whatever color you want. And slowly over the years, you get to pay down the mortgage and build equity that way. And as prices rise, as we've seen in the last 7 or 8 years, obviously you build equity in your home itself, and that is where a lot of people, years to come, will be able to move forward in their investment arena in terms of retirement, because now they have a place to live that isn't costing anything, or they downsize, which a lot of folks now are looking at doing. They don't need the 4-bedroom home anymore.
Right.
They have all the equity, and now they're able to actually pay cash for the new home that they're downsizing to, the 2 or 3-bedroom home or first floor living home that they want.
How about investment properties? Whether it's multi-tenant or even commercial, or I guess there's people out there who are buying homes that need renovating and turn around and flip it and sell it at obviously a higher price. Is the timing good for real estate and investments in those different areas?
One of the tricks to real estate is always you make money when you buy real estate, not when you sell real estate. So
Well, that's interesting.
So it's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
making the right purchase. Location is always important. If in terms of investment, it's a long-term investment. You brought up, flipping. That's a different process. That's actually, that's more of a business than an investment strategy.
Okay.
So they're buying the property, and it's the coined word flip now, but it's been being done for a long time.
Right.
You buy a property that needs work. You buy it at the right price. You fix it up, and you resell it at a profit. And so that is a business, and it can be a specialty business. A lot of the homes right now that are being flipped, and more as any business, as more and more people get into it, then the care that has to be taken in terms of purchasing it was the work done right? Was it done by a professional? And we all think we're smarter than we are because of Google, because whatever we don't know how to do, we can just Google it and watch a YouTube. But doesn't mean we're an expert at it.
But that's an
Right.
interesting point. I had never considered that before, but it's more of an entrepreneurial venture, flipping a house, than it is a real estate venture.
Yes,
That makes
yes,
sense.
it really is. And some guys who are really good at it and get it down to a science, and they're very efficient at it, they do well. Again, it's like any business. There are some people who maybe they underestimated their costs, or they underestimated what the house should sell for when they were done. And between those two things, they did the venture, and maybe they didn't make money.
But for those folks that might be listening into us who don't fall into that category and would be more of what you said otherwise, which is a long-term investor. So from their standpoint, if they have the right time frame in mind, and they make the right purchase at the right price, it sounds like the timing can be good, and there's some opportunities out there.
Yes, there are still opportunities out there, and one of the main things with real estate is most millionaires or multimillionaires were made through real estate. Now, through the last 20 years, the stock market has played a big role in how a lot of people have made money, but real estate has always been the staple, and it's been consistent since it's been over the last 100 years. So there's been ups and downs, but it continues to grow, and one of the reasons is people always need a place to live. Right. And with that in mind, in terms of investment properties, whether it was residential rentals or office space or commercial, it's the demand of what's needed. But if you take care of the property and make sure, again, being a landlord is also a job. You brought up about flipping, but it's a job. So either you can hire somebody to do that job for you, property management company, or you can take it on yourself. If you hire somebody, you've got to figure that into your costs of handling the property. And but if you stick with it, again, I like to suggest to clients that it is a 8 to 15 year investment.
Wow.
Because at a certain point in time, you're going to look to sell, and depending on what the market's doing at that moment in time, you may have to stay in for a few more years. So it's not a real liquid investment, but it's in the long term, it will work.
Let me change gears a little bit, and we're kind of winding down the last few minutes here, Mark. But if somebody is interested in looking into whether it's selling their home, buying a new home, looking into an investment property, but they recognize that they don't have the time or the expertise, how do they go about finding somebody like Next Home or somebody like you and have confidence?
One of the first things to do is you can look up your local realtor where you are and find somebody who has experience in your area, in your neighborhood. You want to look for an expert. You want somebody that's going to, take professional pictures, use a professional stager, because you want to maximize the value of your home when you're ready to sell. And if you're buying, you want somebody who knows the area very well to know the homes that are coming up on the market.
That makes sense.
And also to know where the prime locations are in terms of making that decision of what area do I actually want to be in.
What do you see as how does someone know, or how does someone predict what that next great area will be? Are there people who have an in on that?
I don't know about an in, but I think you follow patterns through the years like you would in the stock market, and look at different sectors. In Philadelphia, I know people followed neighborhoods and watched the next 2 blocks out, and so they were buying properties 2 blocks out. Again, it can be speculative. Does it take us a year to get to those 2 blocks out, or does it take 3 or 4 years or 5 years? And that's why I always say it's a longer term investment. If you want a grade A bond per se in the property, you find a great area, good neighborhood, solid neighborhood. You may pay a little bit more, and you may have to put a little bit more money down to make the cash flow work, but you're never going to get hurt. Whereas when you say, hey, let me go out 2 blocks and take a risk on the property, well, if you have to do it in 3 years and it doesn't happen for 6,
right,
now in your situation, maybe you get hurt a little bit.
So it's interesting because, as you were saying earlier about the time frame to put some of your projects together, it takes time.
Yes.
And just to get the word out. And certainly with the work that we do with our clients, we're absolutely focused on achieving long-term objectives,
yeah,
and to discount short-term headlines, as we call it. And you're kind of echoing something fairly similar, not always, in many cases. Well, we're out of time, but certainly this is an area that is I think going to continue to expand. And you're right, the right real estate in the right location at the right price is going to present some opportunities.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And our next guest is going to be Kelly Stewart, who's the CEO and founder of The Positive Business. So until then, thank you for listening, and certainly we believe your money matters.